The desperate bargain Zara Thorne stood in the center of the galactic auction house, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest. The bright lights above made her dark skin glisten with nervous sweat. Her left arm ended at the elbow, wrapped in clean bandages that couldn't hide the reality of her situation. She had lost her arm defending a human mining colony from Kreth raiders 3 months ago. Now she needed credits for a prosthetic, and this was her only option. The auction hall buzzed with alien voices speaking in dozens of languages. Most of the buyers were wealthy merchants from across the galaxy. They came here looking for rare items, exotic pets, and sometimes desperate people like Zara. The humans who ended up here usually had no other choice. Debt, desperation, or disaster had brought them to this point. The auctioneer was a tall, thin creature called a Vorthik. His blue skin shimmered under the lights as he gestured toward Zara with all 4 of his arms. Next item is a human female. Strong, intelligent, missing 1 limb, but still capable of heavy labor. Bidding starts at 5,000 galactic credits. Zara clenched her remaining fist. 5,000 credits wouldn't even buy a basic prosthetic. She needed at least 20,000 for something decent. But she had to try. Her military pension wasn't enough, and no one would hire a 1-armed former soldier. A voice called out from the crowd. 6,000! It came from a group of Xanthari traders. They were known for working their servants until they collapsed. Zara's stomach twisted with fear, but she kept her face calm. 7,000. Another voice, this time from a purple-skinned Moravian who owned factories on the outer planets. Zara had heard stories about those factories. Workers went in healthy and came out broken. If they came out at all, the bidding continued slowly. 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. Still not enough. Zara watched the faces in the crowd, seeing nothing but cold calculation. To them, she wasn't a person who had served her species with honor. She was just another piece of merchandise. Then something unexpected happened. A new voice rang out, clear and strong. 50,000 credits. The entire auction hall fell silent. Every head turned to see who had made such an enormous bid. In the back of the room stood a human man with graying hair and kind eyes. He wore the simple clothes of a ship captain, nothing fancy or expensive. But his voice carried authority that made even the aliens take notice. The auctioneer's 4 eyes widened in surprise. "Did you say 50,000, Captain?" The man nodded. Firmly, "I did, and I'm prepared to pay immediately." Whispers filled the hall. Other bidders looked confused and angry. The Xanthari trader, who had been bidding earlier, threw up his hands in frustration. No one could match such an offer, especially for a disabled human. "Sold," the auctioneer declared, bringing down his ceremonial hammer with a loud bang. To Captain Marcus Cole of the merchant vessel Defiance. Zara felt dizzy with shock. 50,000 credits was more than enough for the best prosthetic available. But who was this man, and why had he bid so much for her? As the crowd began to disperse, Captain Cole walked toward her with steady steps. "Ma'am," he said politely, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus Cole, and you're coming with me." Zara studied his face carefully. "Why did you bid so much? What do you want from me?" Marcus smiled, and for the first time in months, Zara saw genuine kindness in someone's eyes. "What I want, soldier, is to give you a chance to fight back against the system that brought you here. But first, let's get you that arm." The captain's offer 3 hours later. Zara sat in the medical bay of Captain Cole's ship, watching in amazement as Dr. Hendricks attached her new prosthetic arm. It wasn't just any prosthetic. It was military grade, with enhanced strength and built-in tools. The kind of equipment that cost more than most people earned in 5 years. "How does it feel?" Dr. Hendricks asked as the neural connections came. "Online." The elderly doctor had gentle hands and patient eyes that reminded Zara of her grandfather. Zara flexed her new fingers, marveling at how natural the movement felt. It's incredible. I can actually feel things again. She picked up a small wrench from the medical table, testing her grip. The prosthetic responded perfectly to her thoughts. Captain Cole leaned against the doorway, watching with satisfaction. That's just the beginning, Zara. We have work to do. After Dr. Hendricks finished the calibration and left them alone, Zara turned to face her mysterious benefactor. All right, Captain. You've got my attention. What's this really about? Marcus pulled up a chair and sat down. His expression became serious. Tell me, what do you know about the Galactic Trade Federation? Zara shrugged. They control most of the commerce between star systems. They set the rules for trade, banking, that sort of thing. That's what they want people to think, Marcus said darkly. The truth is, they're running the biggest slavery operation in galactic history. They've set up systems to trap humans in debt and force them into indentured servitude. The auction house where I found you, they own it. The words hit Zara like a physical blow. You're saying they deliberately create situations where humans have to sell themselves? Exactly. Marcus stood up and activated a holographic display. It showed trade routes, financial records, and dozens of human faces. They manipulate markets to bankrupt human colonies. They fund pirate raids on our settlements. They even sabotage our military operations to create more desperate veterans like yourself. Zara stared at the evidence in shock. But why? Why target humans specifically? Because we're dangerous to them, Marcus replied. Humans adapt faster than any other species. We innovate, we fight, we never give up. In a fair fight, we dominate galactic trade within a generation. So they made sure it's not a fair fight. The hologram showed images of human slaves working in alien factories, mines, and farms across the galaxy. Millions of people trapped in a system designed to exploit them. Zara felt anger building in her chest like a growing fire. What can we do about it? She asked through gritted teeth. Marcus smiled grimly. We're going to tear their system apart from the inside. But first, I need to show you something. He led her through the ship's corridors to a large cargo bay. When the doors opened, Zara gasped. The bay was filled with weapons, armor, and military equipment, but more importantly, it was filled with people. Dozens of humans, all with prosthetic limbs or other signs of having been through hell. Welcome to the free human movement, Marcus announced. Every person here was bought from slavery markets across the galaxy. Every one of them has a score to settle with the Federation. A woman with cybernetic eyes stepped forward. I'm Lieutenant Jessica Park, former Colonial Marines. Lost my squad when Federation-funded pirates hit our transport. She gestured to a man with mechanical legs. That's Sergeant Rodriguez. They worked him nearly to death in their mining operations. One by one, Marcus introduced Zara to her new teammates. Each had a story of loss, betrayal, and survival. Each had been discarded by the system they had once served. But here, surrounded by others who understood their pain, they had found purpose. Again, the Federation thinks humans are weak because we help each other, Marcus explained. They see compassion as a flaw to be exploited. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Zara looked around at the determined faces surrounding her. These weren't broken people anymore. They were soldiers preparing for war. What's our first target? Marcus activated another holographic display, this one showing a massive space station. Federation Trade Hub 7. It's where they process most of the human merchandise for the outer systems. We're going to shut it down and free every human they're holding. How many people are we talking about? Zara asked. According to our intelligence, about 2,000 humans are currently being held there. Men, women, children, all scheduled to be sold in the next few days. Zara felt her new prosthetic hand clench into her fist. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow at dawn," Marcus replied. "But Zara, you should know, this isn't just a rescue mission. This is the beginning of a war. Once we hit that station, there's no going back. The Federation will hunt us across the galaxy." Zara looked around at her new comrades, seeing her own determination reflected in their eyes. "Good. Let them come. It's time humanity reminded the galaxy why they should fear us." The Stormbreak's Federation Trade Hub 7 hung in space like a massive steel spider, its arms reaching out to capture passing ships. The station processed millions of tons of cargo every day, but its most profitable business happened in the lower levels where no inspectors ever went. In those hidden chambers, human beings were sorted, cataloged, and prepared for sale like any other commodity. Captain Cole's ship, the Defiance, approached the station disguised as a routine cargo hauler. But hidden in its hold were 30 of humanity's most dangerous survivors, each armed with stolen Federation weapons and burning with the desire for revenge. Zara checked her gear one final time. Her new prosthetic arm had been upgraded with cutting tools and a built-in plasma caster. Around her, the other members of the Free Human movement made their own preparations. The air was thick with tension and determination. "Remember the plan," Marcus addressed the group over the comm system. "We dock at loading bay 12. Jessica's team hits the security center, while Rodriguez takes the communications array. Zara, you're with me. We go straight for the holding cells." Lieutenant Park nodded grimly. "What about civilian casualties? There are thousands of alien workers on that station." "We avoid them when possible," Marcus replied. "But our priority is saving human lives. The Federation didn't show mercy to our people, but we're better than they are." The Defiance shuddered slightly as it docked with the station. Through the viewports, Zara could see Federation security guards in their distinctive blue uniforms. Completely unaware of what was about to hit them, the cargo doors opened with a soft hiss. Marcus stepped out first, wearing the simple coveralls of a freight captain. The security guards barely glanced at him as he approached with falsified shipping documents. They had processed thousands of routine deliveries and saw no reason to be suspicious. That was their first mistake. Marcus reached the security checkpoint and smiled pleasantly at the guard. "Morning. Got a special delivery for the lower levels." The guard, a bored-looking Xanthari with 4 arms, reached for the documents. "What kind of special delivery?" "The kind that's going to shut down your slave operation," Marcus replied calmly. "Before the guard could react, Marcus's hand shot out and struck a pressure point on the alien's neck. The Xanthari collapsed instantly. All around the docking bay, other members of the Free Human movement revealed themselves and struck. Simultaneously, Zara emerged from the cargo hold with her weapon ready. The sight that greeted her made her blood boil. Even in the loading bay, she could see humans in chains being moved like cargo. Their eyes were hollow with despair, their spirits broken by months or years of captivity. "Not anymore," she whispered, raising her plasma caster. The battle for Trade Hub 7 began with a thunderclap of human fury. Security alarms shrieked as the freedom fighters spread through the station like wildfire. Federation forces tried to respond, but they had grown lazy and overconfident. They had never faced desperate humans fighting for their freedom. Jessica, Park's team reached the security center and found it defended by a squad of Federation Marines. The aliens were well trained and heavily armed, but they made one crucial error. They underestimated human determination. "Take cover," Jessica shouted as plasma bolts filled the corridor. She rolled behind a support pillar and returned fire with deadly accuracy. Her cybernetic eyes calculated angles and trajectories faster than any organic brain could manage. The Federation Marines had superior weapons and armor, But Jessica's team had something more powerful, the knowledge that failure meant watching. Their people suffer. One by one, the alien defenders fell to human ingenuity and desperate courage. Meanwhile, Zara and Marcus fought their way toward the lower levels, where the human prisoners were held. The corridors were narrow and twisting, designed to confuse escaping slaves. But Marcus had studied the station's blueprints for months, and Zara's military training helped her navigate the maze of passages. They encountered a group of Federation guards herding a line of human children toward the auction chambers. The sight of those terrified young faces drove Zara into a rage that surprised even her. "Let them go," she roared, her prosthetic arm transforming into a plasma cannon. The guards turned in surprise, reaching for their weapons. They never got the chance to draw them. Zara's enhanced arm unleashed a barrage of energy that turned their cover into smoking slag. Marcus followed up with precise shots that dropped the survivors before they could raise an alarm. The human children stared in shock as their chains were cut away. Most of them had been prisoners so long they had forgotten what freedom looked like. "It's okay," Zara said gently, kneeling to their level. "We're here to take you home." A little girl with dark hair and frightened eyes looked up at her. "Are you really humans?" The guard said all humans were slaves. Zara felt tears sting her eyes. "Not all of us, sweetheart. And after today, none of us will be." The rescue operation continued for 3 hours. Level by level, the free human movement fought through Federation defenses and liberated their people. They found humans who had been prisoners for years, broken in body, but not in spirit. They found children who had never known freedom, and elderly people who thought they would die in chains. But they also found something else, evidence of the true scope of the Federation's crimes. Computer records showed slave markets on hundreds of worlds, trafficking operations that spanned the galaxy, and plans to expand their human hunting operations. As the last Federation defenders were defeated, Captain Cole stood in the station's command center and activated the communication array. His message would reach every human colony in known space. "This is Captain Marcus Cole of the Free Human Movement. Today, we have struck the first blow for human freedom. We have liberated 2,000 of our people from Federation slavery. But this is only the beginning. The time has come for humanity to stand together and show the galaxy that we will never again bow to those who would enslave us." He paused, looking out at the stars beyond the viewport. "To every human listening to this message, you are not alone. We are coming for you. And to the Federation and their allies, you have awakened something you cannot control. You have awakened human wrath." The galaxy responds. The rescue at Trade Hub 7 sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Within hours, news of the human uprising spread to every star system. The Federation's carefully maintained image of invincibility cracked like a broken mirror. For the first time in centuries, someone had successfully challenged their authority and lived to tell about it. In the gleaming towers of Federation Central Command, panic reigned. Admiral Vexthil, the station's supreme commander, paced back and forth in his office while his subordinates delivered increasingly bad news. The tall, insectoid alien's compound eyes reflected his growing rage. How did this happen? He clicked angrily. How did a handful of primitive humans destroy one of our most secure facilities? His intelligence officer, a nervous Moravian named Kelth, shuffled through data tablets with trembling hands. "Sir, our analysis suggests this was not a random attack. The humans knew exactly where to strike and when. They had detailed knowledge of our security systems and prisoner locations." "Are you suggesting we have a spy?" Vexthil's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Multiple spies, sir. This level of coordination requires a network. The humans call themselves the Free Human Movement, and they appear to have operatives throughout Federation space." Admiral Vexthil slammed one of his 4 arms against his desk, cracking the reinforced metal surface. Then we hunt them down like the vermin they are. Double security at all slave facilities. Increase patrols in human space. I want every ship in the fleet searching for this Marcus Cole. But across the galaxy, the damage was already spreading. The Federation had built their empire on the belief that resistance was futile. They controlled the banks, the trade routes, and the military. Individual species might grumble about their policies, but no one had ever successfully fought back. Until now. On a dozen different worlds, humans who had heard Cole's message began to organize. Dr. Nathan Cross, a brilliant scientist who had lost his family to Federation relocations, started building weapons in his hidden laboratory. Maria Santos, a former cargo pilot, began smuggling supplies to human resistance cells. Even in the most oppressive Federation colonies, whispers of hope began to spread. The Free Human Movement had established a hidden base in an abandoned asteroid mining station on the edge of civilized space. The facility buzzed with activity as rescued humans worked alongside volunteers who had escaped Federation control. Zara found herself appointed as the group's military commander, a responsibility that both thrilled and terrified her. "We've got problems," Lieutenant Park announced as she entered the strategy room. Federation task forces are mobilizing throughout the sector. They're hitting every human settlement they suspect of harboring resistance members. Zara studied the tactical display showing Federation fleet movements. Red markers indicated hostile forces, while green showed confirmed human resistance cells. The enemy outnumbered them 1,000 to 1, but that had never stopped humans before. "What about our recruitment efforts?" Zara asked. Sergeant Rodriguez, now serving as their intelligence chief, pulled up another screen. "Better than expected. We've got former military personnel joining us from 17 different colonies. Scientists, engineers, pilots, people are coming out of hiding to fight." Captain Cole entered the room carrying a steaming cup of coffee and wearing a grim expression. "I just finished reviewing our supply situation. We're critically short on everything: weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, food. The Federation has cut off trade to any system suspected of supporting us." "Then we take what we need," Zara replied simply. "What's our next target?" Marcus activated a holographic display showing a massive cargo convoy. Federation Supply Fleet Delta 7. 40 ships carrying weapons, food, and medical equipment to their military bases in the Outer Rim. If we can capture even half of those vessels, we'll have enough supplies to arm a real army. The plan was audacious and dangerous. The supply fleet was escorted by Federation warships and traveled through heavily patrolled space. But the Free Human Movement had something their enemies lacked: the element of surprise and the desperate courage of people fighting for their freedom. Zara assembled her strike teams while Captain Cole worked with their growing fleet of captured and donated ships. They had managed to acquire a dozen vessels of various types, from fast attack craft to heavy cargo haulers. None of them were military grade, but human engineers had made modifications that would surprise the Federation. Attack came as the supply fleet passed through the Helix Nebula, where sensor interference would mask their approach. Zara led the assault from the bridge of a modified cargo ship that had been converted into a makeshift warship. "Remember," she announced over the comm system, "we're not just fighting for supplies. Every victory sends a message to humans across the galaxy. Today, we show them that the Federation can be beaten." The battle was fierce but brief. Federation escort ships were powerful, but their crews had grown complacent after years of fighting weaker opponents. They expected pirates to run at the first sign of real resistance. They didn't expect humans to fight with the ferocity of cornered wolves. Human pilots proved their superior adaptability, using unconventional tactics that confused their opponents. They flew damaged ships until they literally fell apart, ejecting at the last second before their vessels rammed into Federation cruisers. They used the nebula's interference to appear and disappear like ghosts, striking where the enemy least expected. When the smoke cleared, 23 Federation cargo ships had been captured along with their precious supplies. More importantly, recordings of the battle spread throughout human space, inspiring others to join the resistance. But the Federation's response was swift and brutal. Admiral Vexthal ordered reprisal raids against human civilian targets. Entire colonies were bombarded from orbit as punishment for supporting the resistance. Thousands of innocent people died in the Federation's attempt to break human morale. Massacre had the opposite effect. Instead of crushing human resistance, it ignited a fury that spread like wildfire. Humans who had been content to live under Federation rule now saw the truth. Their masters viewed them as expendable. The only choice was to fight or die. Captain Cole stood before the assembled leaders of the growing resistance movement, his face grave but determined. The Federation has shown its true nature. They're not just slavers. They're genocidal monsters who will kill anyone who threatens their power. He activated a galaxy-wide communication system that human hackers had infiltrated. His words would reach every human settlement, every Federation facility, every corner of known space. People of Earth and all human colonies, the time for half measures is over. The Federation has declared war on our entire species. They think they can intimidate us with mass murder. They're wrong. For every human life they take, we will make them pay 100-fold. This is no longer just a resistance. This is the birth of the Terran Empire. And we will not stop until every human in the galaxy is free. Empire rising 2 years after the liberation of Trade Hub 7, the galaxy had become a battleground. What began as a desperate rescue mission had evolved into the largest military conflict in galactic history. The free human movement had transformed into the Terran Imperial Navy, with fleets operating across dozens of star systems. Admiral Zara Thorne stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, now a massive dreadnought built from captured Federation technology and human ingenuity. Her prosthetic arm had been upgraded again, this time with command interfaces that allowed her to control multiple ship systems simultaneously. Around her, the bridge hummed with activity as her officers coordinated the largest human fleet ever. Assembled. Admiral, her communications officer called out, incoming transmission from the Federation Council. Zara nodded grimly. Put them through. The holographic display shimmered to life, revealing the assembled leadership of the Galactic Trade Federation. Admiral Vexthal stepped forward, his insectoid features twisted with barely controlled rage. Admiral Thorne, he clicked angrily, your terrorist activities have gone too far. We offer you one final chance to surrender. Lay down your weapons, and we will grant amnesty to your followers. Zara laughed, a sound without humor. Amnesty? After you murdered millions of innocent humans? After you turned our people into slaves? She leaned forward, her enhanced arm whirring softly. I have a counteroffer. Surrender now, release every human in your custody, and we might let some of you live. The Federation leaders recoiled in shock. No one had ever spoken to them with such defiance. For centuries, they had been the supreme power in the galaxy, feared and obeyed by all lesser species. You forget your place, human, Vexthal snarled. We have 1,000 ships to your 100. We control the trade routes, the banking systems, the military production facilities. You are insects buzzing around giants. Then let's see how giants handle a swarm, Zara replied, cutting the transmission. The final battle for human freedom began at the Nexus Gate, a massive space station that controlled the primary hyperspace, routes between the galaxy's core worlds and outer colonies. Whoever controlled the Nexus controlled galactic commerce. The Federation had built it to be impregnable, defended by the most powerful fleet ever assembled. But they had never faced an enemy like humanity. Captain Cole, now serving as Zara's strategic advisor, stood beside her as they reviewed the battle. "Plans. The Federation has committed everything to this fight," he said quietly. "If we lose here, the Resistance dies with us." "We won't lose," Zara replied with absolute certainty. "We can't afford to." The human fleet approached the Nexus in 3 waves. The first consisted of fast attack ships, crewed by the most reckless pilots in the galaxy. Their job was to draw Federation fire and create chaos in the enemy formation. The second wave included the heavy cruisers and battleships that would engage the enemy's main fleet. The third wave was the most important, a single ship carrying the most dangerous cargo in human history. As the battle commenced, space erupted in a symphony of destruction. Federation ships unleashed devastating volleys of plasma fire, while human vessels responded with innovative weapons that violated every known law of physics. Human engineers had spent 2 years studying captured alien technology and finding ways to improve it. The Federation's numerical advantage meant nothing when human pilots proved they could outfight and outthink any opponent. They used tactics no other species would consider, ramming damaged ships into enemy formations or deliberately overloading their reactors to create massive explosions. But the real surprise came when the third wave reached its target. Dr. Nathan Cross, the scientist who had joined the Resistance after losing his family, had spent months working on a secret project. Hidden in the cargo hold of a modified freighter was a device that would change the nature of warfare forever. "Quantum Cascade torpedo armed and ready," Dr. Cross reported from the ship's laboratory. "Admiral, you need to get your people clear of the target zone." Zara gave the order for all human ships to retreat to minimum safe distance. The Federation forces, seeing their enemies withdraw, pressed their attack with renewed vigor. They thought the humans were retreating in defeat. They were wrong. The Quantum Cascade torpedo struck the Nexus Gate's main reactor with devastating effect. The weapon didn't just destroy its target, it created a chain reaction that tore through the station's entire power grid. In seconds, the most heavily defended position in Federation space became a tomb of twisted metal and dying lights. The Federation fleet found itself trapped as their primary base collapsed around them. Human ships poured through the chaos, targeting command vessels and communication arrays. Without coordination, the superior Federation numbers became a liability as ships collided with debris and friendly fire cut down dozens of vessels. Admiral Vexthil's flagship tried to escape through a hyperspace jump, but human hackers had already infiltrated their navigation systems. Instead of reaching safety, the Federation command ship emerged in the middle of a human fleet anchorage, where Captain Rodriguez waited with a welcoming committee. The war ended not with a grand battle, but with the simple reality that the Federation had lost the will to fight. Their fleets were scattered, their leadership captured or dead, and their member species began negotiating separate peace treaties with a new Terran empire. 5 years later, Zara stood in the garden of the Imperial Palace on New Earth, watching human children play in the sunshine. Her prosthetic arm had been replaced with a biological regeneration that made her whole again, but she kept the mechanical one as a reminder of how far humanity had come. "Any regrets?" Captain Cole asked, joining her on the observation deck. Smiled, thinking of all the humans who were now free to live their lives without fear. "Just one. I wish it hadn't taken so long for us to remember who we really are." The Terran Empire stretched across 100 worlds now, built not on conquest, but on the simple human principle that every person deserved freedom and dignity. Galaxy had learned to respect humanity, not because they were the strongest, but because they were the most determined. And in the end, that made all the difference.